Top lane is widely considered to be one of the worst roles in the game at the moment, at least according to the community. Now, it's definitely understandable as to why this is the public opinion, because for the first 15 minutes of the game, you're not likely going to be impacting the map all that much as a top laner. You can only teleport to bot lane every once in a while to help get a Drake or counter gank or perform a dive, and that's about all you can do. You can help your jungler with Rift Herald, but outside of that, it's just you against your laner. Since top lane champions are not especially strong at the moment, they're not going to be outperforming control mages and ADCs in the late game, this means that top lane is relatively weak, right? Well, actually, no. There's one very simple playstyle that you can use as a top laner that turns you into the win condition, allowing you to carry a lot of your games. This is going to be the split pushing playstyle, and today we're going to be covering exactly what you need to be doing in order to exploit this powerful strategy and gain as much elo as possible in Season 10. Now, if you haven't already, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. Over there, we have hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy-to-use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion-specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check us out using the link in the description below. Now, without further ado, let's get right into split pushing and all the little intricacies that you should be mastering. Starting in champion select. One of the most important things to ensure that you're going to have success when you're split pushing is drafting a favorable one-on-one matchup. You don't want to draft something like Renekton into Jax, because then you're not going to be able to beat him in the side lane 1v1, which will completely close you off from ever split pushing against him. You also want to make sure that you're actually drafting something that can split push. If you pick Maokai top lane, that's not exactly a pick that's going to be destroying towers quickly, right? So you want to be taking champions that can build Blade the Ruined King, Trinity Force, build a lot of AD, have auto attack resets. Champions like these are going to be able to take towers quickly, and as a result, they're going to be able to apply more pressure on the map. Now, typically, this makes AD melee bruisers the most common things that you'll see split pushing, but there are other classes that can split push. There are some marksmen that are really good at split pushing, like, for example, Quinn or Vayne top. There's also something like Diana or Kassadin, kind of a hybrid mage assassin sort of thing. These both have the ability to itemize Sheen items like Lichbane if they want, or they have a lot of attack speed. For example, Diana gets attack speed from her kit, and she builds Nashor's Tooth. This allows them to quickly destroy towers, and they're very safe in the side lane because of their champion kits. Finally, there are a few odd picks left that can split push. For example, most tanks just aren't able to split push, but Sion can, even if he is building full tank. This is because of his synergy with Demolish. Sion gets a lot of HP, making his Demolish proc deal a lot of damage, and his passive he's able to hit towers with, so this allows him to take towers very quickly. Also, in a last-ditch effort, his ultimate does damage to towers, so, for example, if you're in a base race and you have Sion on your team, you can ultimate into the enemy's Nexus and hit both Nexus towers with your ultimate, dealing damage to both of them. As far as AD assassins go, you're usually not going to be split pushing with these, but there are a few picks that can split push really well as an AD assassin. These are primarily going to be Rengar and Talon. Talon is able to do it because he has just the most immense safety in the game. Like, you can just do whatever you want on this champion, and if you're in the side lane, you're probably going to be able to get away with your E and jumping over walls as long as they're off cooldown. The other one is going to be Rengar, because Rengar just absolutely melts towers, especially the tier 2 towers, because he's able to jump on these from the brush right next to that tower. He also has 2 empowered auto attacks that work on the tower, which just so happen to be auto attack resets, and one of them gives him an attack speed steroid. Rengar also has really high base AD because of his passive, so he just absolutely melts towers if he's allowed to stay on them and use his empowered Q. Now, I think I've covered enough examples for you to get the idea that there aren't just a few small niche champions that can split push. There's actually quite a few different classes and champions that are going to be able to see success using this strategy. Now, obviously, there are going to be certain champions that are going to be much better at split pushing than others. For example, Tryndamere is almost always going to split push in every single one of his games because he's probably the best split pusher in the game. What you should be taking away from this is you never want to close off split pushing as an opportunity for you. In a lot of your games, as long as you draft something that is able to pressure towers relatively well, split pushing will be an option to draw pressure away from the rest of your team and put it onto yourself. Now that we understand this, what should we be doing from the very beginning of the game so that we can be as impactful as possible when we're split pushing? The number one most important thing is you need to farm. Farming is the most important thing in the game as a split pusher. You need to get gold, you need to get EXP. If you don't have these two things, you're not going to be able to take towers quickly and you're not going to be able to duel whoever shows up in the side lane to match you. This means that a lot of the time you're going to have to develop the discipline to ignore the enemy top laner a lot of the time and take farm over trading. Most of the time, taking the farm is going to be more important than just poking the enemy top laner. You don't really care if they are able to stay in the lane. You want as much golden EXP for yourself as possible. If you're able to kill them, then great. But other than that, it's not worth missing CS for a trade. This is going to extend to tower plating and also stealing away jungle camps. Remember, you want as much economy as possible. Tower plates are going to give you a lot of gold, and if you're able to get first tower, you're going to get even more gold. This is going to allow you to push the waves even further and closer to the next tower, which will then allow you to invade the enemy jungle and steal away their camps, giving you, again, a gold and EXP lead. Now remember how I said we were going to be mostly ignoring the enemy top laner and we're not going to value trading with them over getting CS? Well, it's the same thing here for the tier 2 tower. You do not want to be hitting the tier 2 tower after you've broken the first one. Instead, you want to be getting more resources. Only hit that tower if you're not able to invade the enemy jungle and take wolves, romp, raptors, or krugs away, okay? Now, obviously, if nobody is matching you in the lane and they're just 5v4 your team on the other side of the map, you need to be hitting that tower and pushing the lane. You shouldn't just be farming the jungle. But assuming that you're being matched in a 1 versus 1, it's much better for you to continue to push your lead because they're going to be getting the CS no matter what. They're going to be stopping you from taking the tower quickly. It's better for you to just keep getting that gold and DXP that you can. That's going to put the enemy jungler behind, it's going to put you ahead of your lane, and on top of that, it's going to give you more of an opportunity to build your items so you can take towers faster. Now, if there are no jungle camps to be taken in the enemy topside jungle, and on top of that, the enemy top laner is just turtling under their tower, you can't dive them, you can't take the tower, then you should be going for the Rift Herald. Rift Herald is your best friend as a top laner. If you use that on a tier 2 tower, you're going to crash it into the tower, which is going to break that tower, and then you're also going to be able to crash the Rift Herald into the inhibitor tower, giving you good progress on that, giving you an opportunity to break the inhibitor tower much earlier in the game than you would normally be able to. Now, if you follow the rules that I've mentioned so far religiously, then you won't even need to get kills in your lane to have an immense lead on your laner. You can result in plus 100 CS without ever killing them just by doing these things. If you perfect them, you're going to have the most insane CS leads, the most insane golden EXP leads that you could ever hope for. Okay, but what if Rift Herald doesn't spawn for a second time, or the enemy team takes it? Then what should you be doing? It's these scenarios that you've been playing the first 15 minutes of the game in preparation for. Remember, you've been mostly ignoring your lane up until this point and taking as much jungle camps as you can. This is to give you a lead on that lane so that when it is inevitably time for you to swap to the bot side of the map, when Baron spawns, you're going to have an opportunity to destroy whoever you're landing against in a 1v1. You want to be so far ahead at this point that it doesn't even matter if it's a 1v1, a 1v2, or even a 1v3. You want to be the one coming out ahead on top, killing that side laner, maybe killing 2 people while your team is able to do Baron. Now, that does not mean that I recommend that you jump into every single 1v2 or 1v3 that you see. Sometimes it's better to just back off and allow your team to pressure the opposite side of the map with a number advantage. Now, whenever you're not able to perform a dive in that 1v1 or perform a 1v2, you should be continuing to farm. Don't ever stop farming as a top laner, okay? You want to make sure you keep that lead, you maintain it so the enemy top laner isn't able to come back into that game and hold their own against you. Now, you want to make sure that you are only taking fights at this stage of the game if you are going to be able to pressure after that fight. This means you dive the enemy top laner, you kill them under their tower, and then you're able to take the tower and pressure the next one after, or you trade 1-for-1 in a 1v3, allowing your team to get Baron for free. There needs to be some sort of reward for you actually taking the fight, otherwise there's no point in doing it. In lower elos, a lot of the time, enemy top laners are going to panic and they're just going to group with their team past 20 minutes. This is not a problem for you. You should not react to them grouping with your team. Instead, you should take towers as quickly as possible and go for an inhib if you can get it. The only time you should be basing and responding to the enemy team grouping is if and only if they can take something very valuable like, say, an inhib without you trading for anything of theirs. This means that if the enemy team is wanting to push for your middle inhibitor and you can take the enemy's bot lane inhibitor, this is fantastic for you. As a split pusher, this is exactly what you want because this will create pressure on a place in the map that doesn't require your attention. This means that you essentially have supers pushing a lane without you needing to be there, meaning you can be in a different lane. So essentially, the enemy team is going to have to match your team in the mid lane, they're going to have to send somebody bot lane to deal with the super minions, and you're going to be able to be top lane alone. This allows you to continue pushing down towers, creating more and more pressure, and if you just continue to play safe, ward out for any ganks, make sure you don't get 4-man and just ran down the lane, then you're going to be able to continue to create pressure without dying and slowly strangle the enemy team out of the game to the point where they have no opportunity to win at all. So how does this turn you into the win condition? Well, it's very simple, actually. This is because it puts all of the stress of the game on your shoulders. All of the pressure to perform is going to be on you, and it's not going to be on your team at all. The only thing that your team needs to do in order to win with a split pusher is wave clear. That's it. It's one of the easiest things to do in the game, especially if the enemy team can't get Baron to stop you from doing it, or super minions. So what are some of the big mistakes and no-nos that I see when watching other people split push? Number one is I see XX Leet Riven Master 69XX who's permanently fighting the enemy top laner and trading 1-for-1 over and over and over again. This is not the idea of split pushing, okay? The idea of split pushing is you want to take towers. You don't want to just fight the enemy top laner. If you're just trading 1-for-1 in the side lane over and over and over again, it doesn't even matter if that trade 1-for-1 is slightly better for you in terms of EXP or gold. You're not going to be able to pressure anything, so effectively what you're doing is making both top laners irrelevant. This is doing the exact opposite of what the strategy is intending to do, which is to allow you to solo carry the game. Instead, you're making yourself useless by just permanently fighting for no reason. The second big mistake is I will see a lot of players trading way too much in the lane phase when they could be CSing or getting tower plates. Or what they will do is they'll take the first tower completely and then they'll push to the second tier tower, and instead of going to go get CS from the enemy jungle, what they'll do is they'll try to dive the enemy top laner, or they'll try to poke them under the tower and then they'll get ganked and die. Don't just stand aimlessly outside of the tier 2 tower. You should be going and getting something. Always be pushing your lead further. The final mistake that I see a lot of split pushers making is they'll see their counterpart group with their team and try and force a 5v4. In these cases, a lot of the time, they will also respond and just 5v5 in the mid lane, just running down mid A-ramming. The only times that you should ever be responding to a 5v5 is if your team has absolutely no wave clear at all and they need you to be back so that they can teamfight and survive a dive under their tower, or if their team has some sort of insane engage like Zac or Malphite and there's no way for them to safely clear. If your team has wave clear and there's no imminent threat that they're going to be flash engaged on, then you should stay in the side lane and get those towers for free. Just ask your team to wave clear and trust that they are able to do that one simple thing without fighting. Now, trusting your team is a very dangerous thing in solo queue. Sometimes when you're split pushing, your Vayne is going to flash ulti tumble into 5 people, die, and then immediately ping you for not being in the mid lane with them 5v5ing while you're split pushing. That's gonna happen. It's not your fault, but it might happen in some of your games. but you gotta realize that more times than not, you're not going to have your ADC Vayne flash into 5 people, and more often than not, instead, your team's gonna listen to you, they're gonna wave clear, and you're going to be able to carry the game in the side lane 1 versus 0. Now that does just about cover everything that I've got for you on the biggest mistakes on split pushing, as well as what you should be looking to do to split push properly. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like down below, and if you haven't already, then make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. Over at our website, we've got hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We've got courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion-specific courses. So if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check us out using the link in the description below. As always, I'm Panther, I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.